All right, this is Chapter 2, Lesson 1, Percent of a Number for 7th grade math. So, I have my doodle note, percent of a number. We're going to start in the upper left-hand corner. All right, so find the percent of a number such as 60% of 2,000. You can use either of the following methods. First, write the blank as a fraction and then blank, or write the percent as a blank and then multiply. So in those blanks, you're going to write, first one is percent. So write the percent as a fraction and then multiply. Or you can write the percent as a decimal and then multiply. So you can either write the percent as a fraction or a decimal. Completely up to you, whichever way you'd like to do it. Okay, but I do recommend either changing it to a fraction or a decimal. It'll make your life easier. All right, percents that are greater than 100% can be written as blank, 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 or blank greater than 1. So in those blanks, you're going to write improper fraction, mixed number, or decimal greater than 1. You can write it as any of those. So, for example, 150% can be written as an improper fraction, 150 over 100, which equals 3 halves when you simplify, as a mixed number, which is 1 and 1/2, or as a decimal greater than 100, which is 1.5. In the center, you have this little triangle. So this triangle actually shows you what to do with changing fractions to decimals to percents. So if you're going from a percent to a fraction, you're going to put that percent over 100. If you're going from fraction to decimal, you're multiplying it by a percent. Okay? Going from decimal to percent, you're multiplying it by 100. So I have two examples here. My first example says find 5% of 300 by writing the percent as a fraction. So I change 5% into either a fraction or a decimal. Okay? It asked me to do it as a fraction, so that's what I'm going to do. All right, 5% as a fraction becomes 5 over 100. You can put any percent over 100. So whatever the number is, put it over 100. You're done. You wrote it as a fraction. Okay? 5 over 100, which I can simplify to 1/20th. Then I find 1/20th of 300. Of means to multiply, so I can change this into an expression. 1/20 of 300 means 1 over 20 times 300. So when I multiply 120 times 300 over 1, because I can always put a whole number over 1, and then I multiply. 1 times 300 is 300, and 20 times 1 is 20. Then I reduce and simplify. Okay? When I reduce this, I get 15 over 1, or 15. So 5% of 300 is 15. My other example I have is changing from a percent to a decimal. Find 150% of 28. So the first thing that we should recognize immediately is the fact that I have a percent that's greater than 100, which means my answer is going to be more than whatever number they gave me. So if I get a number that's smaller than 28, I did something wrong, because they gave me a percent that's over 100. So 150% of 28 by writing the percent as a decimal. So 150%, I move my decimal over 2 places to the left. Okay, so I started here at 0 and I move it 2 places, so I get 1.5. Then find 1.5 of 28. Again, of means multiply, so I can change this into an expression. 28 times 1.5, which gives me 14. And so I add 14 to 28. Remember, it's greater than 100. Okay? So I get 14 plus 28 is 42. So 150% of 28 is 42. All right, so there are a couple of try problems out below. I want you to go ahead, pause the video, try them out, and when you're done, we'll go over the answers together. All right, now that you've had a chance to try out the try problems, let's go over the answers together. So again, you can use either fractions or decimals, whichever one that you would prefer. I'll go back and forth between the two, but again, as long as you get the correct answer at the end and can show me all of your work, it doesn't matter which path you take to get the answer. So the first one I have is 40% of 70. I'm going to change 40% into a decimal. So when I do that, 40% becomes 0.4. 40% of 70, of means multiply, so 0.4 times 70 will give me 28. 40% is less than 100, so I know that my answer is going to be lower than the number that they gave me, the whole number. Okay. Next one I have is 15% of 100. So again, I'm going to take 15%, I'm going to change it into a decimal. So 15% changed to a decimal is 0.15. So I take 0.15 times 100, which gives me 15. $55% of 160. So I'm going to change 55% into a decimal, which is 0.55. 0.55 times 160 will give me 88. Next one I have is 75% of 280. So I'm going to change 75% into a fraction. 75% is 75 over 100, which simplifies to 3/4. So 3/4 times 280 over 1 is 840 over 4, which simplifies to 210. $150% of 20. Again, I noticed the 150% is more than 100%, which means my answer is going to be bigger than 20. So 150% of 20, 150%, I can change to a decimal, 1.5. 1.5 times 20, 30. $160% of 35. I'm going to change 160% into a decimal, 1.6. 1.6 times 35. 1.6 times 35 gives me 56. All right, and that is the end of Chapter 2, Lesson 1.